Okay, so let's begin, I suppose. Last class, we made this friendly little person list app where we can add some people. Let's add in Randy because he's a cool guy. Add him in. Look at that. We can put people in our list and we can be like, get out of here if we feel like it. Now, um, for today, we're going to continue expanding on this. So if you haven't already pulled from Git, you probably want to so you can follow along. But what we're going to do today is we're going to take this person list and we're going to combine it with another thing, which is going to be a list of chores, things that people have to do. Chores are going to have names, like what is it that they're actually doing. It's going to have a person who's going to have to do it. For the sake of making things look pretty, we'll have a little picture. And then we're going to have time associated with it. This could be it happens at a specific time. It could happen every week. It could happen on a certain day. We'll have lots of different options for that. So our chore class is going to be somewhat convoluted, unfortunately. But what we're going to end up with at the end of this is being able to build a little calendar that will tell us who has chores on given days. So let's do that. Starting with going to, actually, before we do, okay, let me zoom in so people can see things. That's a good place to start, huh? Presentation mode. Okay, project. So, out of here. We have all of our person stuff is done. Half of our models are done. We don't have a model for chores yet, so we're going to need to do that. And we also want to write a handy little file that's going to manage a few things for us, namely the fact that I don't like how Flutter manages to print out things like dates. It prints out, all kinds of like fractions and stuff like that, which are all annoying. So we're going to make another file in lib, which is going to be called utils.dart. Utils.dart. And this is in the top level of my lib folder. And utils.dart is just it's not gonna have a class. It's just gonna have some functions that we're gonna use elsewhere. The first is gonna be called 2 digits. Because if I am printing out, for instance, a date, I want to not print out, 8/12/2022. I want 08/12/2022. So our result is going to start out as empty string. If the value is less than 10, then I need to add a 0. Result plus equals 0. And then I will return the result plus the value, converted to a string. This is just handy little utility so that we can make sure that our things all print out in a uniform 2-digit fashion. We also want a string toDate string given a year, a month, and a day, which are all integers. We want to print out things the way you would print out a date, right? So to print out a date, we need to, or return a date, we need to take the year, make that a string. Then we'll add a slash. Then we'll do the month. And because the month, I don't want to print 1, I want to print 01, we'll use our 2 digits of the month, plus a slash, plus, our line of code is getting long, 2 digits of the day. And I think both of these should be to string, right? Oh, wait, no, this is a string. Why is this one asking me to convert to a string? Kind of weird that this one doesn't ask me to, but this one does. But it's okay. I won't ask too many questions. All right. So now if we have, a date, we can print it as properly year/month/day. Then let's do time. So to time string. For time, we only really care about hours and minutes. Somebody who is planning chores for you to the second is a insane person and probably should dismiss their chore assignments. We're going to return converting the hour to 2 digits plus a colon plus the minute to 2 digits. So this way we can make things look nice and pretty. We got our date in the format we would want. The time is going to have always 4 digits, so it looks nice and uniform. And then the last utility we need to write here is going to be just a handy thing that's going to convert numbers into strings for the days of the week. So this is going to have the very descriptive term get weekday name by index, given the index. And this is going to be an annoying function to write, but sadly it does what it does. If the index is 1, return Monday. I'm going to do this like 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't need a 7th one because I can just do else. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then return Sunday at the end. That's it. That should wrap up our utilities function. This is mostly because I want to be printing out dates and times in a few different places. I want to make sure they're always appearing the exact same way. So just to make things nice and pretty, we'll have our utilities function here. Okay, now, the next thing that I think I'm going to do is go to our models because we need to be able to model a chore. And the chores are going to look pretty chunky, so we need to code all of that stuff. So let's buckle up. All right. Chore. Our chore class doesn't need any imports, fortunately, because this is basically just going to keep track of a lot of data. Chore is going to have a lot of parameters. The first one is the ID, which will set defaulting to 0. And this is just going to refer to, again, the unique identifier for the database. The chore needs a name. Go to the bathroom or whatever. It's going to have the name of an icon, so that way I can create an icon for it anytime I want to generate one. It's going to have a yes or no of whether or not we're going to repeat it. I guess this probably could be a Boolean, but that's okay. We're going to have a date, which is, again, when does this happen? We're going to have a time, the time it happens. And then we're going to have 7 integers, and you can maybe guess after the first one what they're all going to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's a good question. I think I should be able to. Yeah. I think I had them originally without them, and then later I added in the equals, and now I guess I don't really need them anymore, do I? Friday, Saturday. Yeah. Okay. So I have the properties of a chore. And so these all integers are, again, basically just going to be, do I repeat them on this day or not? I suppose, again, to make this like properly good code, these should be Booleans, really. But, it's okay. We're not going to be too picky. We need a constructor for our chore. Our chore constructor is going to have this dot ID, this dot name, this dot icon, basically this dot everything, except for the days of the week. This dot date. Why are these mad at me? Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't actually need to assign these, but these might get angry if I don't. Yeah, let's put the question marks back. I don't want to write required 1,000 times. Also, I don't actually want to require them all, because it might be the case that, for instance, I have a chore that doesn't have a date because, for instance, it's meant to be weekly, so it never is required for a specific day, but it's every Monday, period. So because I actually might want these to be potentially null, I will leave the question marks in. This dot time. Yeah, that's true as well. There's a lot of ways you could do it. I'm being a little lazy here. Okay. So that's there. And then in the constructor, we'll assign, we can assign, I guess, the default values for the days of the week, because these do have to actually have numbers or it'll be very angry. Monday. If this is extremely boring, don't worry. After I've done the really boring part, I'll push it to Git and then you can just pull it. Okay, so we have a constructor. It's going to set up oh, I don't need this here. It's going to set up a chore. It's going to at least have zeros for all these by default. These are all optional, but ideally we want to fill in most of them. Then, oh boy, this is a messy, messy class. It's probably a nicer way to do this, but it's okay. If you fall behind, I'll push this as soon as I finish the chore class. All right, we need to be able to create a chore from a map. Same way we did with our persons. We are given a map which has string and dynamic, called map. And we need to assign all of these things to be whatever we get from the map. So this .id equals map of ID. And the same thing for all the stuff that's not a weekday. How many are there? 6, 7? More. We got ID, name, icon, assigned to, repeat. Why is this one angry? Did I type it wrong? Oh, I missed assigned to for some reason. My bad. We want to have somebody who is supposed to do this task. Okay, got all the variables, weekdays assigned. Let's map them. Repeat, date, and time. And then I get the exciting process of copying all that into the maps. Fun stuff. Okay, and I'm not done because now I need to assign the days of the week. Now, for the interest of not populating my database with tons and tons of values that are kind of unnecessary, I'm going to assume that it's possible my map is not going to have values for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and so on. So this .sunday will be if the map contains Sunday, then it will be map of Sunday. Otherwise, it'll be 0. I don't want to have to store zeros all the time for all of the things that don't actually have repeated days of the weeks. So I'm going to keep it like this. And then once again, you can probably guess what exciting process we get to do now, which is copy it 7 times. Monday, Tuesday, yes. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And the same thing here and here, this thing here and here, this thing here and here. Not the most exciting programming you've ever seen, but you know, all this is going to pay off when we actually get it to work, which I guarantee we will. Okay, a few more functions we have to write, not done yet. We have our class, we have a constructor, we can make one from a map. Now we need to be able to take a chore and generate a map. The typing here is required. If you don't put this typing in, it'll be very angry at you. The typing here I went with was string object. And the function is called to map. Given our class we have, we're going to return a map. And our map is going to have, no surprise, all of our variables. So the ID is going to be this .id if it exists, otherwise 0. And let's copy this like 10 times or something. Some like obscene number. We have name assigned to icon repeat time date Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't need the last one. And now I get the fun process of copying this over. So it's okay if you're falling asleep. I'll just push this shortly and then you can steal it. Probably there is a better way, I think, to do this. I suppose you could maybe use like an enumerator, perhaps, something like that. That would iterate so I don't have to like repeatedly write Sunday, Monday, and so on. But my concern right now is just getting this kind of working. There are much cleaner ways to do this, so I probably would dock code quality on myself if I tried to hand this in. Oh, and instead of zeros, these should be quotes because they're strings. And now I think, yeah, I think that should be fine. Okay. There's my to map. Another thing we're going to write should be, why is that not tabbing? There we go. Is going to be a function string get weekday summary. So I want to have a function that is going to take all of these numbers, assuming that they're ones, and anytime that there's a 1, I want it to help me build a string that's going to represent in letters what days of the week this chore is actually on. So my default is no days, but if this dot Sunday isn't 0, meaning it's a 1, then I will append su for Sunday. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other days of the week and then return the string, which will have all of the days of the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then we got mo, to, we, th, fr, s, a. And we'll return that string. I put this in the wrong spot. It should be up here. Okay, almost done. We're going to wrap up with a toString. I don't think I need to override this. I can just do toString. So string weekday summary is going to call the function we just wrote because I want to print this out with all of the information. So here's everything that a chore contains. My chore has an ID. It has a name. It has who it's assigned to. It has, do I have to add this? Is that the right formatting for this? I feel like I missed something. Yeah, I just might not. Yeah, that's probably why it's man. There we go. Okay, cool. Icon, it's the icon. Repeat is repeat. Date, time. Oh, time is time. Down again. And then weekdays is going to be weekday summary. Okay, this was a pain to write, but it's okay. It's finally over. We can take a deep breath. We survived. I will push this as well so that we have everything that's here. But after all of this annoying coding, we finally have a class that represents a chore that we can actually use for our code. So I will push this, pause for a bit so people can take the code. Open my Explorer, please. So grab all this, throw it in here, overwrite, git lecture 9 chore, commit, push. Okay, it's all there. So if you didn't type as rapid speed as I did, it's okay. You can just grab the code now. So I'll pause a bit before I move on to coding the next thing. But oh, and I put chore in the wrong spot. It should actually be under models because we're modeling a chore. Yes, refactor that. We have a person as a model, we have a chore as a model, and we need actually the code that's going to help us interact with the database using our chore class. So unsurprisingly, we're going to have a new class in here that's called chore model, and chore model is going to probably look almost the same as our person model, in that it's just basically going to have a whole bunch of functions that go and play with our database using our utils thing that we wrote last class, allow us to insert, update, delete, and so on. So let's write it, a new Dart file called chore model. Okay. Now, chore model has some imports we're going to need. Async, Dart async. We're going to need sqflight. We're going to need utils, the one that we wrote earlier. We're going to need dbutils from last class. And we're going to need chore, because we just did it. And now, just like person model, our only goal here is to handle all of the functions that actually manipulate the database. We're not going to do anything else. No widgets, and nothing else that's unnecessary. It's all just going to be things that require us to play with our data. So the class here is chore model. And in our other functions, we're just going to make an instance of this class so that we can run all the functions. We don't actually need it to like store any data or anything like that. So I'm going to have no variables for this class at all, just a bunch of functions. And the first one is a future function called insert chore, the most default that I need. Database db. This could be null, and anytime it's null, then I want to make sure I can pull my database. And also a chore asynchronously. And if there's no chore, then probably inserting will do weird things, but it's okay. If the database is null, then I will wait for it to initialize. Then we don't actually have to do anything with the result, but we will wait for db is here, insert, and we're inserting into the table called chores. If you recall from last class, we actually made this table. We just haven't used it yet. And if you remember, we wrote this ugly long line of code, and you probably recognize all of the words that are in here are the ones that we wrote today. So that's been taken care of already. Now all we have to do is call that table, and from that table, we are going to take our chore. We're going to make it into a map, and then pass it in. And if there is a conflict, then we will do conflict algorithm dot replace. Done. This should be the exact same, I think, as the person version of this. So to make the other ones, we're going to, once again, just mostly copy paste. Same code. This time we're going to update. Instead of insert, we're going to update. And instead of a conflict algorithm, we need where the ID is something and the ID is ID. Or sorry, chore.id. I guess this is not necessary because I already did exclamation mark here. I don't think this is right spacing, but that's okay. So exact same as insert chore, just I'm updating instead of inserting. Conflicts are not a concern because I'm updating stuff. So I just need to have a query. And in this case, it's just where the ID is the one I'm looking for from the chore that's there. Now, that's this function. Then I'm going to write another one, copy and pasting the stuff from before. And this time we're going to delete. This time to delete, we're going to, once again, we're going to take the ID instead of the chore. Definitely an ID. And we're going to wait for delete. We don't have a chore anymore, but the only parameter we need to pass here is the query to find the thing that we're trying to delete. So it's where the ID is our parameter, which is ID in brackets. There we go. So these all look basically carbon copies almost of each other with just the changes of the methods. And in fact, even and the other difference is for delete chore, we're not passing the object, we're just passing the ID number. You can do it the other way, I suppose, but it's not necessary because we only actually need the ID number. So there's no point passing an entire object when we only need a number from it. Okay, next up, we have another one. So this one is going to be called get all chores. And it's going to take a database, initialize. We're going to, in this case, we want to actually make a list of chores and return it. So first off, we need to get from the database. The database gives us maps, and we're going to use those maps to create chores and then pass those back. So final list maps equals await. We'll do a query. And our query is going to look through the chores table and give us everything. And then from the chores table, I need to take those maps and convert them into chores. Persons. Another note, just because this can cause you errors down the line, the typing for this is required once again. I noticed when I tried to do this without the typing, not having chore here led to really weird things happening later down the line, so I definitely recommend making sure that you include that there, even though it seems like it's kind of optional. We're not doing an insert here, so we can delete this, but we are going to have to iterate. You know, I is 0, I is less than the length of the maps. And for each map that's in here, we need to add to persons the chore generated from that map. So persons.add, and what we're adding to that is going to be creating a chore from a map, and the parameter is going to be the ith element of the maps that we took from our query. Last but not least, we return the persons. Okay. Now, I think, is this the last one? Yeah, one more function to wrap up our chore model. And this is going to get them by date. So we're going to copy one more time. We're going to get the chores by the date. And so here we're going to take a date time, date, and our goal here is to use this date to query what we have and try to find chores that happen on that date so that we can show them off. So first we need to initialize everything. We also need to set a string to represent the current day of the week. So the weekday is going to be get weekday name by index, that code we wrote before, which is going to take an index and give us a string that represents the name. And the day of the week is date.weekday. And date.weekday is going to give us a number. And according with ISO 8601, a week starts with Monday, which has the value of 1. Kind of a like really weird stipulation, I guess, but there it is. So because we need to work with date time, we have this restriction on what the numbers need to represent. Now, we are going to do a query to give us some maps from our database. Query. And we're going to query the chores table. The columns that we want to get from our query include the following, and it's basically everything. So what are all the columns that we have in our database? Well, we have ID, we have name, assigned to, icon, repeat, date, time, days of the week. It's very messy having to code all of this, but alas, I don't think there's an easy workaround. Friday. Comma. Saturday. Okay, so the columns are all of the data from our database because we want to have all that. And we're grabbing the columns where if the repeat is daily, sorry, I need to put double quotes here. Okay, so this gets kind of messy. Since I have a query where I need to query strings, I need to indicate something's a string. I'm going to use double quotations for the query, and for the strings inside the query, I'll use single quotes. So daily with single quotes. If you don't do this, I think it'll get very angry at you. So be very careful about your mix-up of quotation marks. This is like prime victimhood for SQL injections, but security not a concern for me at the moment. Okay, if it's daily, or if the repeat is none, and the date is the day I care about, or if the repeat is weekly and the weekday is 1, I think. Not quite sure why this is 1. That doesn't sound right. But I guess I'll leave it. We'll see if this is broken. Oh, yeah, weekday. No, it has to be weekday is 1 because this should be or is it weekday that's 1? I'll leave it for now. If it's like broken, I'll fix it. It's okay. The argument for this is so this is the argument that I'm looking for. If something doesn't repeat, but it's on a day that I care about, then I want to make sure that I get that chore for that day. So I'm going to do where args to date string, which I wrote earlier, and it's date.year, date.month, date.day. This date being the date time up here. And we want to sort these because that would be nice. And we'll order them by time. Because if you're showing off a list of all of the chores that you have for the day, you probably want to list them in chronological order in which they appear. Seems to make sense to me. Okay, messy looking query, but I guess it's the densest query we've had to write in this course, so it's not a bad thing to just have it as an example if someone needs to do something like this. Once again, there's more typing required for the code below, which is now I'm going to build another list of chores from the query I just got and return them. So list of chores. For each chore, meaning I have to iterate through all the maps. And for each map, I'm going to build a chore. It's the exact same code I wrote before. Chores.add, build a chore from the map, and the map is the index of index I of maps. And I'll return it. So let's pause for a second just to re-evaluate what we've done so far in here. Our chore model is purely for database management. We allow insertions, updates, deletes, getting all the chores. Notably, this is going to return a list of chore objects using the class that we built earlier. When we query the database, it only gives us dictionaries, but it might be the case that we want to actually have an object. So in that case, we're going to need to be able to create those objects from the dictionaries that we pull out. Fortunately, we wrote a function from map that will do this for us, and we can add those chores we build using the maps into a list for instance, display purposes. We also want to be able to not just get all the chores, but get the chores that happen on a specific day only. So, given the day in which they are happening, we have to consider, well, um, if the thing happens every day, we definitely want to show it off during the day. If the specific date that we're on is the day that this chore is supposed to happen, we want to show it. And if a chore happens on a weekly basis and the weekday in which that chore happens is marked with the number 1, so remember that weekday here from this function gives us literally the word Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. And we have parameters, which are the column names of chores in our database that are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. If the name of that weekday is 1, that means you want to repeat it every weekday of that kind. So every Monday or every Wednesday or so on. In any of these cases, we care about the chore that's happening there, and we want to pull it from our database. So once we pull it out, we can add it to a list and return that list. I'll push this again to Git, but so far all we've done does not actually show anything different in our actual code. It's all purely the case of oops, let me grab all this. This is all just setting up for when we actually start making our chores. Okay, in here, I'm going to delete all this and replace it with this. So, lect9 chore model. Okay. So, there's a chunky bit of code that we wrote, but we're now at the point where our model is set up. We can put chores in the database. We can pull them out as we need to. We can show off things in the correct format if we really want to. Now we have to actually figure out how we can add a chore. Right now we don't have that. So let's add a chore. And to do so, I think the first thing we have to start with is yeah, before we do that, we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a boost with a piece of code called select icon. And this is purely aesthetics. This is the kind of thing, to make it actually look nice, be presentable, appear somewhat professional. We're going to make a little selector thing so that when we try to make a chore, rather than us just being boring and having a text field and we type in the name of a chore and then we fall asleep because class is boring, we're going to make a pretty little icon picker that will show us pictures, and we can say, this picture is pretty, I want it, and assign that to our chore. So to do that, we're going to start off with importing our favorite library, material. We are going to have an icon that gets selected called select icon. And we're going to have a class called icon selector. And our icon selector, not icon selected. And our icon selector is going to have 2 methods. Basically, one of them that's going to build a list of icons that we can show off. Another one that's going to actually have a dialog that pops up unless people pick things. So let's start with the icon list. So we're going to make this static because it never is really going to change. And we're going to call it build icon text list. And the parameter for this is going to be a context. This is important because we want them to be able to pick something from the list and have that reflected. So first off, we'll start by declaring the icons you want to use. So the icons we're going to use are going to be a list of names of icons. And they're going to be all the things from our assets folder. So our assets right now include these 3 things. So it's going to be assets. I think it's /assets. Actually, no, I think it's just assets. /icons 8 dash alarms dash 100.png. And then the other ones are called aquarium and brain, just for fun. There's actually like a gazillion more of these you can find online for free, but I only want to show off a couple just to make it work. Okay, so we got some icons. We're going to make a list of widgets. We're going to creatively call it widget list. And what we want to do here is build a bunch of buttons, and the buttons are going to have the picture of the icon on them, so you can click on it, and then that'll do what we want to do. So for int I is 0, I is less than the length of our icons that we have available to us, I++, we're going to add to our widget list a bunch of buttons. We're going to add a text button. Yeah, that's right. Just spacing this out so it looks kind of nice. The text button is going to have a child, which is the image dot asset, and the name is going to be icon I. This will actually grab this file name, use the asset method here, which goes and finds that file and then shows it off. And then the on pressed here, when we press the button, we want to make our selected icon be icon I. And because we passed it a context, this is why it's important to do so, we can actually make this class interact with other parts of an app by going navigator.of. And now we have context because it was a parameter. .pop icon I. So because we're going to be presumably calling this later down the line with an actual context, we're going to be calling it from inside our app. At some point, you know, you're going to be working on figuring out who's doing which chores for the week. You want to try to assign a chore to somebody. Well, this icon selector thing, if I don't have a context, only really knows what's inside of this function, which means that, you know, it knows a few file names of pictures, but it can't actually interact with the rest of your code. Importantly, I want to be able to make it so that when somebody clicks on one of these icons that they pick for their chore, it actually goes back a page and then passes that information to something useful. So I want to build this list of buttons that all have the pictures on them, and then I can return the widget list because I want to show this off. I want to show them all these buttons and let them pick from the buttons that are here. So my icon selector class is complete. I make my, or not my class, my function, build icon text list. I have all my icons. I make a list. For each of the icons I can show off, I make a button. When you press any of the buttons, it pushes back, it pulls back, and it gives that icon over so I can select it and do something with it. And I want to show the icon so you can see it when you pick it. Now, that's all well and good, but I also want an alert dialog, a little thing that will pop up and go on top of the screen and allow me to play with this thing. So I have an alert dialog. Get icon selector dialog given a context. And my goal here is basically to use this widget list thing that I built and put it inside of an alert dialog so something can pop up, let them pick from the list, and then go away after. So I'm going to return an alert dialog. I need to give it lots of parameters. So the first is going to be a title. And the title for this is just going to be some text that says, you know, select an icon. The content for this is going to be a container. And inside the container, which will have a width so that I can show everything, double max finite. Basically, I want to fill up the screen with as much space as I need to. The child for this is going to be a grid view that shows off all of the icons I'm going to be playing with. Now, cross-access count, I guess we'll set to 4 for fun. Doesn't matter too much. I don't have a lot of icons to show, but if you were showing like 100 icons, you might want to think about how many you want in a single row at a time. And the children of this grid view are going to be my widget list. Build icon text list context. So what this code will do is make an alert dialog that pops up on the screen and says pick an icon. Inside of it, there will be a little container that shows off all the icons that I've made. And when you click on one of them, it will it'll select that one and return it. Now, it might be the case that I pop up this selector to pick an icon. I don't actually want to pick one of them. Because it's an alert dialog, it might be the case that you disable the ability for someone to go back without using the back button as the only option. So we want to also give it an action, which is to cancel. So make a text button. And the text button is going to give them the option to cancel. So the child for this is just going to be text cancel. And when they press, we're just going to go back. So navigator dot of context pop done. So that way, if this thing pops up and we realize, oh, wait a sec, I don't want to do this, you can just click the cancel button and it'll go backwards. Okay, so that's select icon. We need this in order to do the next piece of code, which is going to be pretty chunky. Holy moly, it's actually very chunky. Well, we're gonna see how quickly we can code this, I suppose, which is add chore. Add chore. Okay, this code is pretty dense, so let's get going. We want our select icon that we just wrote. We want utils, material, chore, this is dot slash models slash chore. Dot slash models slash person. And dot slash models slash person model. Let me talk about why we need all these things. Select icon, because when we add a chore, we want to be able to assign a symbol to it. Utils, because we want to be able to take the dates that we're going to set for our chores that we're creating and make them in the right format. Material, because we're showing stuff. Chore, because we're making chores. Person, because we're going to assign people to chores. And person model, because we want to make it so that when we try to assign a person to a chore, we're only picking from the list of people who actually exist. If there's somebody who doesn't exist, they shouldn't be part of the list of options for that. Okay, we're making a state list widget that's going to have a stateful widget inside of it. Kind of wacky, but that's how it goes. So add chore is a stateless widget. In fact, I don't even think I need a... I don't think I even need this. I'll just get rid of this, I think. Yeah. And we're going to make a scaffold. Inside the scaffold is going to be an app bar. Title is add chore. And the body of this is going to be an add chore form, which we're going to build. So make a stateful widget, which is going to be our add chore form. And this is where we're going to write a lot of code that's going to help us build a whole thing to put people, to assign people to chores that they can do. Okay. So first off, rub your hands together and get ready to code a bunch of stuff. In our add chore form, I don't even think we need this either. I think this can go away, right? It doesn't care. I'm not sure if it matters if I have this line in or not. I'll comment it out for fun, but I don't think it matters whatsoever. However, inside my add chore form state, there are things that matter. And importantly, the typing is super mandatory for this stuff, or a lot of things will break. Let's go through one at a time the stuff that I need. I'm making a form. So anytime you need a form, you need a key. Global key. The type of this is form state. Because I'm making a form. We've made forms before. I'm trying to construct a chore, so I'm going to use a variable that will keep track of the properties of that, and I'll just call it chore. I'll create one using the constructor by default, but then I'm going to modify all of the values I need to modify along the way. I also need a person model because I need to access the database and figure out who's around so I can assign those people to chores potentially. I need a list of the names of the people names. We'll start out as empty, but the goal here is to access the database, figure out who's going to be in here, and then put them in. We're going to need a string icon image, which will default to, just for fun, assets / icons 8 brain 100.png, just for fun. We'll put this in later when we actually want to show off the icons. Boolean, whether or not we want to show days of the week. We were going to set up our thing for adding chores so that if they want to do something on a weekly basis, then we need to show the days of the week. If they only want to set it for a single day or time, we don't care about days of the week. We just ask them what time they want it to be. So this is going to start out as false by default, but we might show it off. And if we want to show the date, we'll start off as true. We'll just default to assuming they want to put a chore on a specific day. Okay. First off, I want to write a function, override a function, init state. And when we initialize, we need to do the super version. And we're also going to call a function called init people names because we need to query our database before anything else and figure out who is actually around. So init people names is going to access our database. So we can do person model dot get all person names. No database at the moment because we haven't made one. After we get all the names, then we have the person names. Whoops. And with the person names we have here, we're going to assign that to our people names. I should use person consistently. I'm bad if I'm using that. You probably would complain and be like, oh, but isn't people a plural of person? Yeah, but anytime you're using a plural of a specific object type, you always should just add s after the type, even if it's not grammatically correct. So this should be person names equals person names. This is an extra one that shouldn't be there. Also, this is going to go inside of set state because once I figure out who the names are of all the people in my database, I want to show them all on the screen. And I'm going to do that later when I actually build everything. Okay. So I've got all my initialization set up. Now I need to actually build a what we're going to show off. So again, more preparation to get this going. We want to figure out what time it is. The time is now. Date time dot now. If we don't have a chore yet, then we need to double check to make sure there actually is a char. So we'll set it to be a new one that we construct. We'll assign the icon to be the icon image that we have. We'll assign the date to be toDate string, the code we wrote before, given now. Now. We'll set the time to also be the time string of now. And this is why I wrote all that code earlier, because otherwise it would take even longer. Okay, so in the event that for some reason we don't have a chore, and we want to doubly check that because putting in null chores can lead to a lot of problems, we'll just create one and default it to some values. Now, our goal here, however, is to make a form that will actually generate a chore for us. So in here, we need a key, which is our form key. And we're going to then follow up by making a what's going to be a very, very dense place to fill in a lot of information to create our chore. So starting off, buckle up, I guess. Padding to make it look nice. Edge. Whoop, the padding is edge insets all 8 to make it look pretty. And then we have a column of things. And this column is going to have a bunch of stuff we're going to try to show off here. We're going to push everything to the start. And our children are going to be another container. This seems like kind of extreme that I'm like making containers inside of columns, inside of paddings, but it's all just to make things look really pretty when we're done at the end of the day. The padding here is going to be symmetrical on the horizontal side with 16 spaces to make it nice and positioned. And the child of this is going to be a text form field where someone can write something. And what they're going to write in here is going to be for stuff with the decoration, make it look pretty. Presentation does matter sometimes. The text they're going to write in here is the chore name. And the label is going to be, label text is going to be name, colon. When we click on it, we want it to automatically focus on that. We want to validate it so they can't put in nulls because that's going to break our code half the time, which we don't like. So if the value exists and it's empty, then we can say this field is required. Otherwise, we'll return null. It's fine. And when we save our form field, we want to take the value that they entered, and we're going to change chore name, chore.name to be the value, and we're going to wrap this in set state. Is it not happy with me doing it that way? That's okay. Wrap this in set state. I'm going to pause just for a sec so that I can push this because this is like a lot of code coming really fast. But I do want to try to finish at least the add chores by the end of the day if I don't finish the whole daily schedule. So just to get people caught up in case you've fallen behind, let's throw this in here. Replace. Just so you can catch up. So where we are right now is we're in the middle of our form. In our form, we've put some like nice pretty stuff, basically to set up the name of the chore that we're going to type out. Then inside of our, let's see, so we got unsaved. Let's see, which inside here, we're going to have another container. So in addition, so this is part of our column, because we're building a column that's going to have a bunch of stuff for them to fill in the form field. The next one is also going to, make it look pretty. And then we have some padding. Top 16. And here's where we're gonna have a fun one. Drop down button, hide underline. And the idea here is that we just want to have a little drop down menu that lets us pick a person and put their name in the spot. Okay, so now we have to code this. So the child of a drop down button, hide underline, is a drop down button. Because why not? And here we're going to have a hint which says who this is assigned to. The value is going to be who the chore is currently assigned to. And that way, when we change this over time, we'll see that this gets reflected appropriately. Are you mad because there's no items? Yeah, it's okay. I'll get there. When we change this, it's going to take a value, and it's going to do a modification of who this is assigned to be the value. And we'll set state this so we can see it. This goes here. Finally, what are the things that belong inside this drop-down list? Well, we want the names of the people, person names. We want to map them. So here's also like a really messy piece of code that I want to make sure I get right. So I think the typing here does matter, but we want to map the string value here, which is going to be the name that we actually have, and we want to take each name and from each name construct a drop-down menu item. So we're going to make a drop-down menu item, which is a string itself, and it's going to take a string value, and from that string value, it's going to create a drop-down menu item. And the drop-down menu item is going to have a child, which is text of the value, and a value, which is the value. Okay, why are you mad at me? Couldn't infer parameter E. Whoop. Okay, I made a typo here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. I think all this has to be converted to a list, and that might be why it's mad. Yeah. Okay, nope, it's mad for another reason. Map drop-down menu item, string, given a string value, return a drop-down menu item, string. Nope, still angry. Where have I missed something? Oh, I don't need the square brackets. That's why. There we go. Whew. It was a little spooky for a second. In the interest of seeing this look like something, let's actually pause for a sec so we can actually try to render this and just see what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put add chore in my main just so I can see it. So over here, we're just going to have home be add chore. Imported as well. Just so I can see what this looks like, because we've been coding it like for all lecture and haven't actually seen anything, which is kind of unfortunate. So what happens if I look at this? Oh no, is that to compile the whole thing? No. Most likely what we'll get around to today is finishing up at least being able to get the chores showing, and I might have to leave the rest of it as just code I didn't get around to completing, because there's only 15 minutes left, and I don't think I'll be able to code that fast to finish all that I want to show. So let's see what this looks like, assuming it's going correctly. Oh, it's very angry at me. Why are you angry? There should be exactly one item with drop-down buttons value, but there were 2 or more detected with the same value. Well, that's a problem. Let me see where that happened. Over here. Wait, no. Over here. Um, that seems strange. Let's see here. So, figure out what mistake I made here. It looks like what's going on is that it's unhappy because I'm trying to build a drop-down menu, and the things that are in here are supposed to have values that are different. But I think what might have happened here is my database might have messed up and has duplicates, and duplicates it's very unhappy about. I wonder if there is a way to wipe my database. So you know what I'll do, just for the sake of seeing if this can actually work? Make a second database just to see if that's going to fix the problem. Okay, so now it seems like it's fine. There are no people in this database because it's got a different name, obviously. But probably what's going on here is that in my database, I've made the horrible error of putting in duplicates, and that causes lots and lots of errors. So you got to be careful about that. Probably I would want to write some code that erases them, most likely. But because I don't really have the time to do that right now, we're just going to continue on with our organizer part 2. But notably, I can't assign to anybody right now because I have no people, but I can set in the name if I want to. And just again, for the sake of getting somebody in here, let's actually just push some people into my database. So I'm going to quickly go back to my person list. Let's add a couple people, myself and Randy. Why not? Okay, so those are in the database. Now I'll go back. Oh no, it's really unhappy with me putting anything in the database there. Oh, is it doubly adding each person I put in? When I add a person, so let's see, it does form.save. When I do form.save, it sets the person's name to be the value. I pop out the person from here. This doesn't actually interact with the database, I don't think. But add person is called from person list, and in person list here, I show the snack bar. Where did it actually get inserted? Am I missing that? Did I like not actually insert the person? Oh, no, it's down here. Very curious why this is not quite working the way it should. I wonder if it's a case that my insertion is flawed. I don't think so, though. I mean, it was working perfectly fine before. The issue now I'm having is just trying to actually pull up the things. What if I insert a single person? Will it be mad at that? Let's try it. Debugging time. Now, it is kind of weird that this isn't deleting anything, right? Like, when I do that and then I do a restart, it seems to not actually have deleted. Oh, I guess it did there. Okay, so let's suppose I delete Randy and then I try to do this again. Is it still mad? Yeah, no, seems unhappy. Now, is the database correct? Or did it not actually delete? Yeah, so the database is correct now. It's just really having trouble trying to put in the person into my list of people. Well, kind of unfortunate that this is going the way it is. Let me take a look at my... Oops. So when I add a chore... I feel like if something I did wrong in here, it must be, because at this point, like, this was working before, and oof, geez Louise. What if I try outputting all the people who are in here? So when I guess there's no code I can actually run while it's doing this, really. Because my issue is I'm not quite sure why it's complaining at me for having the multiple things. It doesn't look like I'm actually adding two things to the database. It looks like what's happening is it's putting stuff in the database and then it's giving an identifier that's like conflicting with each other. So I bet you if I like tried to pull from the database, it might not have the ID numbers that match, something like that perhaps. It shouldn't be a problem, but it seems like it is. And I'm not quite sure what the easiest way is to try to fix this thing. If I look at the code here where I try to insert all the items, like this is where it's complaining to me, right? If I'm over here and I try to do add chore and it gets mad at me because it says there's duplicate values, because that's what's happening here. 0 or 2 or more drop-down items were detected with the same value. And it's over here. So it's this part where I'm trying to construct drop-down buttons. Does this have to have a value? Is that why it's angry? So drop-down, hide, underline. Yeah, drop-down button, text, assign to. Maybe it has to do with the way that I set this up. Maybe I'm supposed to return something here. I think that might be the case. What if I rewrite this piece of code and make it look like so? This is all unchanged, right? What if I do this? Just out of curiosity. You never know if this will work. Unchanged arrow set state, because I have to set state, and inside set state I do chore dot assigned to value. I don't think this will fix it, but maybe. Did I miss a symbol? Oh, this shouldn't be here. Nope, didn't help. I am very sad. Why is this broken? Seems like it should be working. Hmm. Figuring out code. We wrote so much code today, it's really hard to tell like where the mistake is. I feel like I probably forgot to do a thing somewhere, but where I forgot to do it is like, could be a lot of places. And this is the thing that's giving duplicate values it shouldn't have. Yeah, I could do that. It's over here. It's when I do what is it? It's get all persons, right? Is the one I'm calling. Let's make sure my get all persons is correct. Maybe that's a good place to start. Get all persons. Okay, is this correct? Persons, add people from maps, go through, return them, empty, query through people. I did call the table people, right? I did, okay. And I print getting all persons, so it should show that, yes? Getting all the people. Okay, well let's see what that looks like then, right? Print persons. Did it not? Did it print empty list? Is that what happened? How come I didn't see anything? Print I, just for fun. Okay, so it's not getting any people. That doesn't sound right at all. But I called get persons in the other one, right? When I build my person list over here, I call get all persons, I'm pretty sure, don't I? Yeah, I call get all persons. And that seems to work perfectly fine. But my persons model isn't actually printing anything when it should. Is there an initialization that I missed, maybe? Well, sorry to disappoint everybody. This lecture did not go the way I wanted it to. What I think I will do, for the sake of everybody, is I'm going to put up on GitHub the code from here, which I don't quite know what went wrong, and I will put up my solution that I'm referencing, which works. So yeah, apologies for it. Not quite sure where there's a bug somewhere that I couldn't quite figure out, but I do recommend using the code that comes with this entire project, which I'll put up there in its entirety so you can see it. That code is a good reference for your projects. So reminder, I believe today is the project check-in day, right? So if you haven't already, please double check that you have in your GitHub repo pushed in the latest version of everything. Now, granted, you can roll the dice if you really feel like it and keep working over the weekend and even into next week if you really want to play it, dangerously, because the TA will pull it when he pulls it. So if the TA is like busy on Monday and gets around to it Tuesday, then if you put something in on Monday, he'll grade it. So it's up to you how much of a risk you want to take. My recommendation is just push something in today for sure, though, because if you don't get time, you want to have something that gets graded. And my hope is to get you at least a week before the final deadline of feedback so you know how well you're doing in terms of the project. Be very careful in looking at your results from that because it's going to be something that I use to guide myself while I'm grading your final project as well. So, thanks people who are here and for watching the video. Sorry about the disappointment, but yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened. Bad luck, I suppose. All right.